Hello guys, welcome to Corex Tech Skills. So today we are going to see about databases and migration to AWS RDS. So in this course curriculum, first we will see how database will work and its main components. Then we will move on to how we can create a databases and tables and the fields in it. Then we will move on. We will see the user of the database for localhost, for a particular app server, and for all. And then at the last, we will going to migrate our database from Linux server to the AWS RDS. So let us go and start.
So in the database, there are many components. Okay, on any database, you can say it like a layers or some managers. Okay, to manage your whole end-to-end request. So whatever the client is requesting, client means us. Okay, the end users. So whatever we are actually trying to access or whatever type of request we are doing on the database. So that request is like having some route, okay, so that it will pass all the routes. So if you talk about like the first thing, so the very first thing will be you are a user. Okay, so the end user. So end user, or you can say client. Okay, so client or end user will be the same. So client or end user you are. Okay, and in the database we are having many layers. This is the database. Okay, so in the database, we are having first a network layer. Okay, so which is obviously name itself will suggest you some networking operations it will handle. Okay, so there are some network manager or a network layer you can say. Okay, which will managing the networks. Okay, like from where the request is coming, is the request is it genuine or not? Okay, and then we are having some more layers. So I'm not like including all and each and every you can say layer, guys. I'm just explaining you the flow. Okay, so don't take it like the exact workflow. There is an exact workflow in a very deeper manner. There is a lot of more components. Okay, more than 15 to 20 components are also remaining other than what I'm like explaining you. Okay, so we can't go deeper because it is a very vast thing. So we will quickly see a overview about like how the data is actually stored or actually retrieved to you. Layer, like you can say execution. So for the execution, so we are having a execution layer or execution manager, you can say. Okay, so it will check your you can say queries, whatever you are putting. So it will check the query is genuine or not. Firstly, network will check the network, like from which network the request is coming. Our execution manager have a lot of more components which will check the query is correct or not, or the whatever query is coming, that query is actually exists or not. Okay, so it will check that concurrency manager. Okay, so it will having some your security purposes or some more components are comes under the concurrency manager. And we are having a very important manager or a layer, you can say a storage layer. Okay, a storage layer, or you can say a storage manager. It is responsible for your managing your storage, like how your storage is there in the database, how to uh, track it, how to like indexing it, okay, how to retrieve it. So it will depend or it will be managed by storage manager. The data is actually stored in the disk, right? You know very well about that. Okay, in the disk, data is going to store, but at the very first, data will come into your memory, okay, into your RAM. So first the data will come into your RAM. If you talk about that, so the first the data will come into the RAM. So data will come into the RAM, and then at the initial stage it will come to the RAM, and then it will go to your disk. Okay, for temporary purpose it will first come to your RAM. It will consume the RAM, then it will go to the KB like in the disk. Okay, so there is a steps there. On each or every step will have their own responsibilities. So then the data will like go into the disk, but not directly. Directly means not whatever you are putting. So it has some system, or it has some you can say a, a flow. Okay, so data will go with only a 16 KB of file. Okay, 16 KB of file. So it will actually store in a 16 KB of file. So how it works, how the things are there. So if I like tell you, so let's suppose this is your disk. Okay, so this is your disk. Okay, okay, so like this, you are having your disk storage, and within that, this type of you can say as like imaginary architecture you are having. Okay, and in this, data is actually going to store like the exact data, which is first coming to the RAM, and then it was going to your disk, and it will go with 16 KB of each file. Okay, and it will go to the buffer manager. Okay, which will put it into the disk. So in the disk, if you talk about this part, like this part, so it call it as a track. Okay, it call it as a track. And if you are like talking about this, like this circle. Okay, first thing we are having this pi, and second thing we are having a circles in this. Okay, so it will call it as a this this will call it as a sector. Okay, sector, sector, and within this sector you can see this pi, and this you can say three curves are coming into this pi. So each one having this. Okay, so if you see this, so there is three you can say small units are there with intersecting of this track and sector, right? This one. Okay, this is a sector, like a track or a sector. So this is a small unit. So this small unit is called as a file block. Okay, it called as a file block where your actual data is stored. File block. Okay, so let me complete this. Okay, then we will answer your query. So don't worry. So data is coming with 16 KB of a file, you can say, and it goes to the buffer manager, which comes under the storage layer. Okay, so buffer manager. So buffer manager will manage it, or it will store the data into this block, like file block. Okay, in 4 KB. Okay, so data is actually stored as a 4 KB. Okay, data is actually comes and store in a 4 KB of a small unit. So let's suppose you have a 16 KB of data. So it will store something like 4 KB here, 4 KB here, 4 KB here, 4 KB here, and so on. Whatever data you are having. Okay. So whatever entries you are doing, let's suppose if you have a table. So in your table, you are having 1 entry, 2 entry, 3 entry, 4 entry. You are having 20 entries, and each entry is taking 2 KB of data. Whatever data you are having. Okay. Like you are storing in a entry like name, email ID, or a country. Maybe it will take a 2 KB of size. Okay, and your each block is taking some data, something like 4 KB. Okay, so it will store only 4 KB of your data. So we for storing this 20 entries, each entry will taking 20 like 2 KB. So it is having 40 KB of data, right? 40 KB of data you are storing into the disk. So how it works? So you can divide it. Okay, so you can divide it with 4. So it will give you an answer 10, right? So 10 blocks, file blocks it takes. Okay, 10 file blocks it will take to store this whole piece of entries. Okay, whatever entries you are having, it will take 10 file blocks. So it will store it in the blocks. Okay. If you are retrieving this data, okay, so if you are retrieving something, some files or some fields or some entries, so it will first, okay, I'm repeating, it will first take the block, the whole block, to the RAM, and then it will start the operation, whatever you have like requested, and then it will process and give you the data, and then remaining part again go with the disk. So every time you will trying to retrieve something, so it is coming to your RAM, and then it will process. It will not process directly in the disk. So your CPU will never process the things in the disk itself. It will take that file block to your RAM, and then it will process it, and then whatever you like, if you got your process, like whatever you have requested, and then it puts back to the file. Okay, it will take to the RAM, and then it will process. So it will take the RAM. That's why the databases will consume more and more and more RAMs, because the behavior for retrieving the data is consuming your RAM. That's why it is more consuming the RAMs. Okay, so you are having in the storage manager the buffer manager, which is like doing this task. Okay, for buffering this from the 16 KB to the 4 KB of your block. So let's suppose you are having right now you are having 2000 entries. Okay, each entry will consume, let's say, 8 KB of your storage. Okay, the data. So for for this, if you calculate this, so I am using the calculator, guys. So if you are talking about this, so for 2000, it will take nearly, I think, the 16,000. So 16,000 KB you are having, right? 16,000 KB, 16,000 KB of the data you are actually having with your entries. Okay, so how much it will take to store, in like how much file blocks it will consume. Okay, so if you divide this 16,000 with 4, so it will give you an answer of 4,000. Okay, so 4,000, if you see the simple max, like 16 divided by 4, so it will give you a 4. So 4,000 file blocks it will take to like store your whole entries of your, like whatever you are putting, document or a file or a table or a database. Okay, anything.